Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I am your host, June Archer. This is the Winner's Circle. I am so excited about my guest. You know how I get when someone amazing comes on the show. But today, my guest offers a ghetto, honest, and at times laugh out loud funny lessons she has learned from surviving abusive relationships, dealing with repeated rejection. We know how that feels. And eventually, she found success in the entertainment business. She talks about listening compassionately to your own internal dialogue, why fame and validation may not always make you feel better about yourself, and how to never play the victim. She provides notes from life's trenches, and these trenches stem from the boogie down Bronx, the South Bronx specifically. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Miss Andrea Navedo. Andrea,
Yay.
welcome to the show. I'm so excited. Award-winning actress, published author. We're going to get to the author piece. If you don't know this amazing young lady, this beautiful human being, you've seen her on One Life to Live, maybe Guiding Light. Girl Six was one of my favorite Spike Lee movies. New York Undercover, of course. We don't have to talk about that iconic show, Malik Yoba. And most recently, over the past couple of years, Jane the Virgin. I want to ask you, how was it like playing Joe Villanueva for these many years as the mom, and put in so many different situations to be a Latina? How did it feel to play that part for so many years?
Oh my goodness. Well, Jane the Virgin was a dream come true for me. I mean, I had been toiling at my craft and my career as an actress, trying to make my way uh, for up to about 27 years when I landed Jane the Virgin. So it was my first series regular role. It was something that I had been striving for a really long time, um, and it not only did I hit like a freaking awesome show, like as my first series regular, but it was something that addressed what I needed when I was growing up as a kid. I was so amazed the first time that I read the script that there was a show that was featuring a Latin family or a Latino family, but the show wasn't a Latin show. It wasn't being billed as a Latin show. It was just a family going through their trials and tribulations and all their flaws and imperfections, and then also but their beauty, and they were the heroes of the story. It was just so refreshing for me as an actress and as a Latina to read that, and I couldn't believe that I was getting the opportunity to be in the show. It was a dream come true, truly.
How important, I love figuring out and learning about reasons why things happen, when they happen, why they happen, how they happen. Why was it important, especially during that time, for a show to focus on a Latino family and what that meant to you coming from the South Bronx and everything that you've endured?
God, I mean, well, when I was coming up in the business, I and in just very beginning of my career, you had mentioned One Life to Live. I had booked uh, a heavily recurring role on One Life to Live. And that was a big deal for me. I thought I hit the big time, but it was the big time because growing up in New York City, if you're in the soaps, if you're in the stories, like
Oh, you're doing something big. You,
yeah, I'm like,
you
shit,
have arrived.
it's the big time here. It was awesome. And everybody that I knew or grew up with was going to see me, like for sure. Um, I was so excited when I got this audition because it was like my first real kind of like TV film audition. And when I read the sides were of this girl next door. And I was like, wow, like, okay, like the TV is starting to realize that Latinos can play, or the Latinas can play the girl next door. Like, we don't have to be this stereotype. Right. And so I was like, I'm a freaking girl next door. I can completely relate to this character. So I go into the audition, super prepared, super excited, and I audition for these two female casting directors. And after I'm done with my scenes, they look at each other and they go, "We'd like to call you back." And I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. Awesome. You're going to call me back. Can you come back tomorrow? Sure. So I drilled the motherfucking shit out of those lines. I was like, I'm going to be so
Absolutely.
prepared.
Absolutely.
Right. And I come back the next day. I'm like skipping and jumping. And I get there and there's no other girls in the waiting room. And I'm like, oh, wow. I'm surprised there's nobody else here. So I go in the room. I do my thing again. They look at each other, kind of nod their heads. And then they look at me and they say, would you like the role? And I'm like, of course I would like the role. And they go, it's yours. And I went, really? And this is just like in the movies, like, it doesn't usually happen that way. You go home, they talk about it, they call your people, and they let you know. But no, they gave it to me in the room and they said, the role starts tomorrow. Can you go for a fitting right now? And I'm like, yeah, I can go for a fitting. Oh, it's just around the corner. So they send me to the studio. I go there, I'm in the fitting room. And I am on cloud nine. I'm like, oh my God, I got the role. I'm on.
Who did you call? Who did you call in that moment? Or did you? Were you stuck on
Well,
cloud
I'd
nine?
had to find a payphone at that time, just so you know. Like a clean one where there's no lines and it's actually working. Okay, did I have a quarter? I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, I'm in the dressing room and they start to have me try on various things. One of them is a mini skirt. I'm like, all right, cool. The next is combat boots. And I'm like, combat boots for the girl next door? I'm like, all right. I haven't read the script. I don't know. But the combat boots, and they put me on this midriff cut off top, like showing my abs. I'm like, okay. And then the last thing to top it all off was gold bamboo hoop earrings. And I went, I'm sorry, I don't understand why you're dressing me this way. This doesn't seem like the character I auditioned for. And the wardrobe woman goes, oh, no, sweetie, that was just some sides that from something an episode that's already aired. They didn't have lines for you, so they just had you read something. You're playing the girlfriend of the gang leader. And I was like, what? Oh my God, I cannot tell you. I was so heartbroken in that moment because I really thought that I was going to play the girl next door. Like that was how I saw myself. And
Right.
I had not seen that in television and film. And I thought, yeah, we're making our way, people. We're like breaking through. We're chipping away. We're like, they're finally seeing. And no, that was not the case. And so here I was very torn because I felt like I should represent my people, or I should like take a stand and not take the role and, and say, no, 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 we don't play these roles. I didn't want to continue to reinforce some sort of stereotype. But then I had to pay the rent and I want to get my health insurance. And the other thing I thought about was like, okay, well, this is going to give me some real footage that I can use for a demo reel to promote myself and stuff like that to get out there. So ultimately, I took the role and I was like, I'm taking one for the team, I guess, but I am not going to play this role the way it's scripted with like a little head roll and all that shit. I'm like, no, not doing it. So I started to just not do what they had written in the script, and I basically was playing myself. And the role was supposed to last 4 months, and it ultimately lasted 2.5 years.
Wow.
And they even set me up with one of the uh, main guy characters as a love interest, like towards the end of my stay there. And so all of that to say is that was then. And then now, going through the years and toiling and trying to get New York undercover was like, that was one way back in the day too.
Yeah.
Um, and, just trying to make my way. And here I finally land Jane the Virgin. And Jane the Virgin was the show that I had always wanted, the show that I needed when I was growing up as a little girl. I needed to see my people reflected in a beautiful light with flaws and all, but I needed to see the potential for myself. But I write about this in the book actually, and one of the points that I realized was, as I said, you know what, that wasn't supposed to be my journey. I wasn't supposed to see myself when I was growing up. I was
Mm.
supposed to feel the pain of not feeling valued, or not feeling included, or feeling invisible. I and because I value though those that adversity. I see that adversity in being the other, which I know we didn't mention my book yet, but my book is called Our Otherness Is Our Strength, Wisdom from the Boogie Down Bronx. And the wisdom comes from realizing the awareness that all those challenges, those feelings like I wasn't being valued, those actually strengthened me. They made me tougher, and they made me tough enough to go the long haul in a very challenging career such as entertainment. As you know, you got to
Hmm.
have a freaking tough skin, you got to be
Yeah.
self-motivated, tenacious, you got to be able to withstand no's, and keep going in spite of the challenges. And so I was able to go the long haul, and I really attribute that to growing up in the Bronx and all the experiences I've had, to being able to stick it out to land a show like Jane the Virgin, and to be part of uh, the community of people that have been clamoring to say, we have value, we have something to say, we're stepping up to the plate, and we are adding our voices and our stories. And so anyway, so Jane the Virgin was just huge in so many ways.
No, I love it, and the one of the beauty of it all is that those who are watching or listening, if you follow the history and the journey, it has been one of not really a bait and switch, but man, I made it, or I think I've gotten a step forward, only to endure this journey to get to Jane the Virgin,
Right.
to finally have the platform to share the stories that you wanted to see, to be the parts to share the all the inner workings of what happens with the culture that you grew up in, that
Mm,
the world can see. We are these beautiful people.
mm,
But with
mm.
that, I want to ask you, because I've had this conversation with Aida Rodriguez, an amazing comedian and actress. How do you feel about, and I don't know who comes up with these labels, so
Mhm.
work with me. Latina,
Oh, God.
Latino, Latinx, um, people of color, indigenous people of color. Where do you stand with these titles that people are still trying to figure out black and brown people?
I know. I know. I mean, just like Ida, I've seen the iterations of all of the like labels that have come up uh, for people who speak Spanish, who come from some place that speaks Spanish. Like, it's like we all have to get peg hold in some way. I've seen Spanish, when that was probably the first one that I realized, like, label. I was like, oh, I'm Spanish, and then eventually it was like, no, you're not Spanish, you're Puerto Rican. But then, like, you go to Puerto Rico, well, no, you're not Puerto Rican, you didn't grow up here. So it's like, well, where the fuck where do
Where
I
am I?
go? Well, I'm certainly not American. Not American. You're not on TV when you're growing up. Nope. No reflection of you there. So
Oh my.
who the fuck am I? So as far as the labels are concerned, I kind of go with it. I feel like it just, you get kind of pigeonholed into saying a certain phrase or a label, and then, like, if you don't say the right one, you're wrong in some way. But I understand people trying to claim some sort of identity. I understand, because we have been stripped of our identity for hundreds, if not thousands of years, right? And so, I understand that feeling, like, no, you will not peg me. I will peg myself. I will give
Right,
myself the
right.
identity. I will give myself the name. So I respect, all of these labels. And I just recently found out what Latina means. I was just coming aboard on Latinx.
You just gave me one I didn't even hear about yet. So
See,
I'm
that's what
I'm
I'm saying.
I can't keep listen. I'm still trying to figure out black, Negro, African American. So I'm with you. So
Yeah. I mean, look, I believe I'm Latina. I like that. I'm Latina. That's how I see it. I like the sound of it, and it works for me. Um, but it doesn't take away, like, whatever label, like, it doesn't take away my history and who I am. I know where I come from now, and I talk about that in the book too. And that was something that was really helpful to me growing up. There's some stories that I've had with my dad that kind of like put me in my place about Puerto Rico. you know, um,
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk because that I find that to be interesting. But before we get there, I want to ask you, what do you miss most about the cast and the production of Jane the Virgin?
well, I miss the camaraderie and the chemistry that we all had as a cast from day one, literally like the pilot. Before the show got picked up, we had no idea that it would be successful or even made into a series. When we worked on that pilot, every single person on there, in front of the camera, behind the camera, was so excited to be there. We knew we had a really cool script. It was so refreshing, and we just came in with this just positive attitude. All these Latinos, it was a mixed cast too. It wasn't just Latino, but just knowing that, oh my God, this is a Latin family that's being represented. And it's not a Latin show, it's not
Right.
being billed that way. We were all about just representing and putting our best foot forward, and it continued to be like that throughout the 5 seasons. And just that we used to laugh so much. You know how when people of color get together, they're really fucking loud.
Yeah. No, not us.
No, no, we're quiet as can be. We used to get yelled at on set to be quiet because we're always joking around and laughing. So the actual main cast was like, we'd get a little pat on the hand to be quiet.
Having too much fun. I think
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing. It just speaks to all the energy and positivity that was on set. And thank you so much for being a part of that journey for a lot of young women who are Latina, Latinea, Latinx,
Right, right.
who
Don't
looks
get
at.
mad at me, please.
Please don't cancel me. If you did, I don't even really care. We'll
Right.
get to the crux of this thing. Um, let's talk about this new book. I love the title. Our otherness is our strength. Wisdom from the boogie down Bronx. What was the inspiration behind this project?
So I went to Dewitt Clinton High School in the Bronx. It's a very famous school, and it's been around for over 100 years, and it was an all boys school originally, and a lot of famous people like Colin Powell, Judd Hirsch, Ralph Lauren have come from Dewitt Clinton High School, and I was one of the first wave of girls to become part of it. It went co-ed basically. So 30 years later, I'm on Jane the Virgin, and I got invited to come and give a commencement speech. And now I'm like, wow, like 30 years later, I'm going to talk to these Black and brown kids. And what am I going to say? Like, they're sitting in the same seats that I was sitting in. And so, what I tried to do was remember what it was like to be in that position, or be them, or to
Right.
be graduating, or remembering all of my experiences. And I wanted them to be able to see a path for themselves to that podium. And it's just like it felt weird being like, I'm on this podium and I'm this quote unquote celebrity. And if I were sitting in those seats, I'd be like, that's great, good for you, but have no idea how to get there.
Right.
you know,
Right. Right.
yeah, awesome. And so I didn't think they'd be able to relate to me. And so what I tried to do was come up with stories that in my childhood that they might be able to relate to. I had some, like in my book, I have a challenging story with a boyfriend that I got mixed up with for a couple years, and he was abusive, and he had a pit bull, and I have a whole story about he had two pit bulls. I talked about that, and then also how it took me 5 years to graduate high school instead of 4, and that was something that I had been really ashamed about for a long time. And I thought it would be good for them to hear that, right? So here it was, I was someone who took 5 years to graduate high school because I got mixed up with this boy and basically wasn't going to school for a whole year, having unprotected sex, all that shit, right? So this is something I was like, okay, they're definitely going to be able to relate to this,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Right. Right.
And in spite of all of that, I'm on that podium. right?
Mm.
And so in my speech, I shared all of that. And at the end of the speech, a lot of kids came up to me and saying, "Thank you for sharing my story." But one Latina in particular came up with tears in her eyes and she said, "Oh my God, thank you for sharing that. It means so much to me because I'm graduating today after 5 years. And if you could win, I could win too." So I was like, that was everything for me, right? I was like,
Wow.
yes, that was my goal. I wanted them to see themselves in me and to see a potential for them. There is a way to light a path, so to speak. So after that, having that impact for those 300 or something kids, I thought I would like to have a bigger impact. I would like to scale this more than any one standing speech could. And so that's where the inspiration for the book came from.
And DeWitt is, for those who don't know, have never been to the Bronx, never heard of this school. This school is huge. I went to speak at the school. I believe Stan Lee graduated
Yeah,
from
yeah,
there as well.
Stan Lee. That's right.
And
Yes.
I remember taking a picture with the mural. I'm saying, man, like this is almost 4 times the size of my high school in
Yeah.
Connecticut. But to see the amount of black and brown young people who have so much motivation, so much inspiration in them,
Mhm.
they just need to see that light. And I thank you for
Yeah.
being that light, because sometimes we feel as though our light is so bright that it can't benefit anyone else. So we never go back. We never
Mm,
go out and
mm,
reach anyone, whether it's
mm.
at our schools that we went to or the communities that we walked through, even the people that we've seen along the journey, need to touch and see that light in person. Sometimes it means more to go back and to be seen. Your presence
Yeah, yeah.
is important.
Yeah.
In this book, for you, what was the hardest piece that you had to share while trying to be as transparent as you possibly could be?
Oof. There's a lot that's not said in the book,
Oh,
which
okay.
might be a second book.
Maybe
Um,
a second, maybe a
Might be
second
a
one.
second book. I mean, to be straight up honest, I wanted to protect my parents, or particularly my mom, because there were some challenging experiences that she and I went through, that I didn't really touch on. And then also, I'm very aware of the people in my life, like my parents or my sister, like people who were there. So I was concerned about, how much I was going to include them in, completely. And I was actually worried because uh, I do talk about my parents, and I was worried that they were going to not be happy with what I wrote, and veto it because the publishers were like, they got to sign off on this.
Right, right, right,
And I was
right.
like, oh shit, man. So, and there was so much more I could have put in. And like I said, I actually have a two-book publishing deal. So maybe that'll be the second book. But um, yeah, I just had to be careful about how much I was revealing, because I can be a very open book, but not everybody wants to have their story out there.
Yeah, yeah. It's a matter of sharing as much as you can, like you said, protecting
Yeah.
people. Do you feel as though you were able to get out what was inside that was important enough to share?
Yes, I do think I did that. And I've talked about it with my editor, who was uh African American female, so she had the sensibility and understood, who our audience was. And the whole point of the book is not to like disparage anyone. The whole point of the book is to inspire and to motivate, and for people to see the positive way forward. And so, as keeping that in mind, that's the tone of the book. She also said that, so many books that are written by people who've come from urban areas have this like darkness and this, feel to it. And she was like, no, let's not go in that direction. We don't need that. That's been done enough. Let's show the bright side. Let's show the positive side. And that's what we did in the book.
I appreciate that. There are
Mm-hmm.
too many stories that go untold because we don't get to speak our truth, or they are overlooked because they are dark.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel great about what you're doing in this book and how many young people it will touch, how many adults it will touch, because there are adults who are still struggling with those same things that
Exactly.
you went through as a child. Especially, I grew up with Puerto Ricans, Dominicans. Uh, my parents are Jamaican, so I'm growing up code switching as a Jamaican cultured young person that is in the black world, but is also in the black and white world, but is also in the world with Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, right? So there's this mashup, but people don't understand that, for better or for worse, those who are coming from the islands, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, their parents are very overprotective, especially the dads when it comes to Puerto Ricans, especially the moms when it comes to Jamaicans. And I think if we share those stories of triumph and understanding, because I think our young people, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, our young people think we are parenting the old school way, but it's the only way we know because that's how we were taught.
Yeah,
How
exactly.
how how are how are you feeling about the way our young people are being raised, and what it looks like for them over the next 10 to 15 years?
Oh man, well, I have teenagers. I have my son is 16 and my daughter just turned 19. They're growing up very differently than I did. I'm not, they're not growing up in the Bronx. They're growing up in a suburb. So it's like a catch 22. It's like, well, they're not getting the adversity that I had, which I'm freaking writing about and thankful for, you know?
Right. Great life, but no edge. Like great life, but no
Exactly.
street sense.
But
Like,
then I say to myself, you know what? Everyone has their own path, like each generation, right? So like my parents were born in Puerto Rico, but they were raised in New York, right? And they have a different sensibility, and they were raised in the 50s and 60s, right? So they're coming from that mindset. And then I am of a different generation, 70s, 80s, 90s. And and I'm in the age of technology and all this other stuff and all the like huge changes. And it's just a different mindset. And so I have the right to live my life the way I see fit, like, and with the set of circumstances that were given to me at the time. Same thing for my parents, right? My grandmother grew up in Puerto Rico, so she's going to try to apply the same rules of Puerto Rico to raising her kids in New York City. That was, during the civil rights movement and all
right,
that stuff. For my mom, like, she she experienced a lot of racism, and and at the time the mentality was assimilation, assimilation, assimilation. Try to go under the wire as much as you can. And now, I've grown up in a time of, no, we're here, I'm proud, Latino, and waving the flag and all of that stuff. So all of that to say is that for my kids, I see they have different challenges than I did.
yeah,
Like, one of them being freaking social media is awful, 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 awful.
yeah.
And then as a parent, how do I navigate that? My parents didn't have social media. I didn't have social media growing up. So now I'm just learning as much as they are. And I see how a negative impact it can have on them, even on me. And I'm 53. Like, goddamn, I
Right.
even,
It's
I even
it's tough out.
succumb to it.
It's tough out here. It's tough out here. As it relates to your journey in terms of acting, were you the victim or the victor? I want to talk about the Latin piece in terms of colorism. In our culture, colorism plays a really big part. And I know that there has been a problem, with a lot of women and men who have been casted in predominantly Latina productions. Um, how do you feel about that? And what can we do better?
About the colorism
Yeah,
in entertainment, like in media.
yeah.
Gosh.
That may be a whole other interview.
That's the whole, like, I mean, I don't even know what to say, because it's so interesting that when I was coming up, I was too dark.
And,
Now,
and see, Andre, that is my point. And
yeah,
as I look at, if people watch you, for those who are watching, will say, "What do you mean you're too dark?"
exactly,
And
right?
I've heard this. I've
When I
seen
was
it.
coming up, I was too dark, and now I'm getting to the point where I'm too light.
And you don't know if you're Latina, Latinx, or Latinx.
Right, because now the emphasis is more and more on Afro Latina,
Right.
which I get because my look, my I think my colorism, my hair, whatever, has been the idea of a Latino. But Latinos range from white to black,
Absolutely. But I
right?
don't think we need more education on that. If
Yeah,
you're going to call us people of color, you have to understand that there is a wide range.
exactly. I say I love my family because literally blonde, blue hair, all the way to black and in between, right? And I say this is my united colors of Benetton family, and I am freaking proud of them, and I
We,
love it,
we need to bring back the United Colors of Benetton.
right?
Life was much better back then.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. When we talk about the last 5 years, and I believe we're trending in a really positive direction as it pertains to getting out of um, COVID-19. What have been the best moments or the best moment over the last 5 years for you? Something that you've learned about yourself along this journey, or something that really made you smile and appreciate life.
Okay, well, the last, I would say, 4 years have been extremely challenging for me, but also rewarding. So I divorced. I came out of a 23-year marriage within that time a few years ago, and it was the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. And without talking too much about my personal life, because there's people involved, it was the best thing that I've ever done. The hardest, most excruciating, painful thing that I have ever done, and the best thing that I've ever done.
Hmm.
I don't think I would have written this book if I didn't have the courage to leave a marriage that was not good for me. Um, it's like that created, like, that fortified me in a way, and gave me the to move forward and dare to try scary things like writing a book and going against the voices in my head that told me I wasn't smart enough to do it or I couldn't see it through and all this other stuff. And then what that did was that was like an ultimate act of self-love, is leaving
Hmm.
a marriage that was really not good for me. And that act of self-love just opened up so much beauty in my life, including a new love who I never thought that I would be treated so well and loved and so well. Like, it's just, I'm going to start crying when I think about it, because it was what I had been wanting for so long. But the only way that that was going to happen, not getting a divorce, was the only way it was going to happen was me choosing me loving
Right.
myself. That was the only way. And I had to make that sacrifice and cut off someone who I loved very, very much, but it wasn't healthy. And so now I have a beautiful relationship that I never saw growing up. I didn't know that this a relationship like this could exist, and I didn't know that I could experience a love like this and a true partnership. And so that's the thing that makes me so happy, that I have that, and I didn't think it was possible, and thank the Lord that I haven't sabotaged. And
Because
I
we can do that too. We can
oh,
self sabotage.
yeah,
We
because
can
we'll be like,
self
"Oh, I want
sabotage.
to love. I want somebody to love me," and then they finally show up, and you're like doing all kinds of shit, throwing bombs and stuff, and they're like, "Wait, whoa, whoa! I'm trying to love you here." But it was all the work I did on myself in therapy, and I still do, And I'm a huge advocate for therapy, and I think our community really needs support in mental health. I've been in and out of therapy since college, and it's been one of the best things I've ever done for myself. I think that my career has, been successful because of the work that I've done on myself and I continue to do on myself. And just throwing that out there because I really think I believe in destigmatizing therapy, and it's one of the bravest things you could ever do is explore your childhood and
Absolutely.
sort it
Absolutely.
out.
Absolutely. I think we need to do more of that. I think we need to support more of that. And in that vein,
Mhm.
I want to ask you this for the black and brown girl who's watching and listening today. What is the best piece of advice you could give them that allows them to understand that there is light at the end of the tunnel? There is a book at the end of the tunnel. There is
Mm,
there
I
is
love
hope. There is love waiting for you.
that.
Uh,
Yes.
if you endure. What advice have you gotten, or what is the best piece of advice that you could share that will allow them to see that light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I feel like I already said it when I talk about therapy, but I do believe that ultimately, no matter what has happened to you in your life, in your past, in your childhood, and is happening to you now, it's up to you to make a change. Like, for example, my marriage, right? It was up to me to make a change, to take a stand for me. No one is coming to save you. No
Mm.
hero.
Say it again, Andrea. Say it
Yeah,
again.
no one's coming to save you. No knight in shining armor. Sorry, but Cinderella's bullshit. And you need to be your own hero. You really do. And but what's so awesome about it is it's empowering. It's like you don't have to be a victim and just go, oh, woe is me, and let's wait, and keep waiting and keep waiting and waiting for your life to get better. No, you could take the reins of your life. You take 100% responsibility, no matter how fucked up everyone is and what they did to you. You take the reins, and then you be the captain of your ship, then you have control. You have control. You can steer your life in the direction that you want it to go, but it's up to you, or it's up to us.
I love it. I love it. Before I let you go, music is a soundtrack to our lives. And I'd like to ask you, what song best represents your journey up to this point, or what artist embodies your journey up to this point?
um well, I've always been a fan of Alicia Keys, and the New York, is it right, the New York State of Mind. That song is like, I'm from New York. And just like, that pumps me up. That like reminds me of where I came from and how far I've come. And that just like really empowers me and psychs me up.
So beautiful. That is a beautiful artist, and she makes beautiful music. Where can we find you? Where can we like what you're doing and support what it is that you have coming up?
Yes, so I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Andrea Navedo. And then also my website is andreanavedo.com. Guys, go out and buy this book. Buy it for a friend, someone who's either graduating high school or college, or starting a new career, or who just got divorced and needs some some inspiration. And you know what? Here's the thing. I also wanted to write a book that was inspiring and self-help, sort of like The War of Art. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the book The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, but it was a huge change for me in my life. It helped my career and all these things. And I love me some Stephen Pressfield, but he is the white man, and that's
Right.
wonderful, right? And then we have the Brene Browns of the world, and I may not be at that level, but I just feel like we needed a book, or we need more books from people of color who are inspiring ourselves, who have similar experiences, and that's where my book is coming from. So go get the book.
Go get the book. You will not be upset about it. You will be thankful. Um, I can't say enough about you, young lady. I thank you for this moment in time that we were able to share. I love what you said about coming out of things that were holding on to you and finding love at the end of the day, going through the challenges of childhood, seeing yourself on television, running the race and running your own race, knowing that at someday you will be rewarded for your tenacity.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Andrea Navedo. Please support her book. Her next roles, make sure you go out. Matter of fact, go back and watch Jane the Virgin. There may be lessons in there that you did not know of that will. I watch reruns all the time. So
I
go
know.
back. I know it's on Netflix. Go support it. And please never leave the opportunity undone to tell somebody you love them. It may be the last opportunity you have to do so. Andrea, I love you, sister. Keep doing what you're doing. I look forward to seeing you at the 100 Women of Color
Yes,
Gala,
I will be
because we
there.
will be honoring our sister the
Yeah.
amazing, the beautiful. Oh my God, I love her too. Oh my God,
I
listen, I'm gonna
that's
get choked
amazing.
up, but
She's
I
got a
can't.
book coming out too.
Yeah, yeah, and
Oh, I'm
I
excited.
have her back on the show, but every time we do an interview, we can't stop laughing.
She's great. She's so
Oh
great.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Andrea, I love you. Keep doing what you're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, support her, love her, like her, see what she's doing, follow her. I am June Archer. This is the Winner Circle. Thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you. Peace.